The Deep Dive podcast is brought to you by X9 Intelligence, LLC. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and visit our blogs at x9intel.com. Okay, so get this, robots, but powered by, actual human brain cells.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Forget lines of code.
No kidding, right?
We're talking robots that are learning from, living tissue.
Yeah, it's brain on a chip.
Brain on a chip. It's not science fiction.
It sounds like it, though.
It does, but the research is, it's real, and it's absolutely mind-blowing coming out of places like Tianjin University in China.
We've got a whole stack of research papers and articles from international science journals, plus some coverage from, tech blogs and stuff, and even a YouTube video that breaks down the basics.
Cool.
But what really got me, I think, is this idea of brain organoids.
Brain organoids. So these are essentially tiny little 3D clusters of brain cells that they grow in a lab. Okay. And they mimic some of the structure and function of the human brain.
So it's like a mini brain in a dish.
Basically.
That's so wild, but then you connect them to electronic devices and you have a biocomputer.
Yeah, you got it. It's like a hybrid of biology and technology. So
it's not even just mimicking the brain. It's using actual living brain cells to compute.
Exact.
Okay, so how does that even work? How do you get a clump of brain cells to control a robot?
Well, it's all about brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. They create a communication pathway between brain activity and, some external device.
Oh, okay.
We've seen this before with things like implanted electrodes in human or animal brains.
Right.
Those mind-controlled prosthetics for amputees.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember seeing a video, I think it was on YouTube, where someone was controlling a robotic arm with their thoughts.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Wow.
But brain on a chip takes this to a whole new level.
Okay.
Because it's using lab-grown brain cells.
Okay.
So you avoid a lot of the ethical concerns around experimenting on humans or animals.
Gotcha.
And it opens up all kinds of new possibilities.
Yeah, okay, so what are they actually getting these robots to do with this brain on a chip setup? What's the goal?
So the researchers at Tianjin University, they were working with Southern University of Science and Technology.
Okay.
And they created this system called MetaBOC. And what's really cool is they actually made it open source.
What does that mean?
So that means anyone can access their work and build on it.
Oh, wow. So anyone listening could go and check out this research.
Exactly. Talk about accelerating progress in this field, right?
That's amazing. So what can this system do?
Well, with MetaBOC, they've been able to get a robot to avoid obstacles, track objects, even grasp things.
Wow.
All through the signals coming from the brain organoid.
No way. So it's not just pre-programmed movements. It's actually learning and reacting in real time based on input from these brain cells.
You got it.
So this brings up a question I've been thinking about. How is this different from AI?
That's a good question.
Because AI seems to be doing all this crazy stuff now, self-driving cars and, playing these complex games. So how does this compare?
It's a good question. One key difference is, I think, the learning process, AI, and particularly deep learning, relies on these massive data sets and super powerful computers to learn.
Yeah.
Think about those self-driving cars. They need to analyze millions of miles of driving data.
Right, just to even, get started.
Exactly.
So it's about recognizing patterns from tons of data.
Right.
Yeah.
But brain-on-a-chip learning, this is incredibly fast.
Oh, really?
There was a study, I think it was in the journal Neuron, that described a system that learned to play Pong.
Wait, hold on. A robot playing Pong, but using a mini brain.
Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
So it learned to play Pong in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Is that faster than AI?
Yeah, much faster. For that specific task, it's far surpassing current AI capabilities.
So how is that even possible?
It's pretty amazing, I think. I think one contributing factor is just the inherent biological ability of these organoids. They're able to form connections between neurons so much more quickly and efficiently than current AI algorithms.
So it's almost like they're tapping into the brain's natural ability to adapt and learn, and that gives it an advantage over artificial intelligence.
Right, and there's another key difference that could be a real game changer, and that's energy efficiency.
Okay.
Brains are remarkably energy efficient, and that translates to these brain-on-a-chip systems.
So you're saying these brain-on-a-chip robots could learn quickly and use way less power than AI-powered robots.
That's exactly right.
That's huge, because I know some AI systems require tons of energy just to run.
Absolutely. It changes everything.
Yeah.
Especially for applications where power consumption is a major concern.
So let's talk about those possibilities. How could this change how robots are designed and used in the future?
I think imagine robots that can truly adapt to unexpected situations in real time.
Yeah,
That's something that even AI-powered robots often struggle with.
right.
Like, think of a robot working in a disaster zone.
Oh, okay.
And it needs to navigate like unpredictable terrain, make split-second decisions to avoid danger.
Right, okay, yeah.
Or even something as simple as a robot in a warehouse, and suddenly there's an obstacle in its path.
Right, and it doesn't know what to do.
Exactly. Instead of needing to be reprogrammed or a human having to intervene, it could just adapt
Wow.
on the fly.
That's amazing. So it makes them more versatile.
Much more versatile,
Yeah.
much more responsive, able to operate in like dynamic, ever-changing environments.
But it's not just about like adaptability, right?
No, it's not just about adaptability.
What else is
They're
it?
also about interaction.
Okay.
Because these robots are essentially running on human brain cells.
Right.
They could potentially understand and respond to subtle cues in human behavior,
Huh.
and that would lead to a much more like intuitive, smooth collaboration between humans and machines.
That's pretty fascinating. It's almost like they could develop like social intelligence,
Yeah,
making them better partners.
exactly. And I think one area where this could be incredibly impactful is public safety,
Public safety, okay.
particularly law enforcement.
Law enforcement, okay, that's interesting. So like how would that work?
Well, X9 Intelligence, in their blog, actually highlighted how brain-on-a-chip tech could potentially address the police shortage.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of cities are facing that right now.
They are, and it's a bold idea, but it's worth exploring, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So imagine robots powered by these brain-on-a-chip systems.
Okay.
They could assist with routine patrols, monitor public spaces, maybe even respond to certain emergencies.
Yeah.
And that could free up human officers to focus on the tasks that really require uniquely human skills and judgment.
Right. So it's almost like the robots would be handling the more routine, potentially dangerous stuff
Right?
and keeping human officers safer.
Exactly.
Yeah, that could be really valuable, especially in cities that are struggling to, keep enough officers on the streets.
For sure. It's still early days, though.
Yeah, of course.
And there are definitely challenges and ethical considerations.
Well, and we'll definitely delve into those
Oh, yeah.
a little bit later in the episode.
For sure.
But first, I think maybe we should take a closer look at this relationship between brain-on-a-chip technology and AI.
That's a key aspect
Yeah.
to really understand because while they seem distinct, they could also complement each other.
So what you're saying, they could work together.
I think so.
How would that even work?
Well, imagine combining the rapid learning, the adaptability of brain-on-a-chip systems with like the vast knowledge base and processing power of AI.
Wow. Okay, so you could have robots that are not only fast learners, but you've got access to like a library of information.
Yeah, exactly.
And all this analytical power.
It's a powerful combo.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, it has the potential to revolutionize robotics
Yeah.
and really take us into uncharted territory.
But it also seems like something that would need to be like approached carefully.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are so many ethical and societal implications to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll be talking about those in much more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
But for now, listeners, we're going to take a quick pause. And when we come back, we'll be digging into the ethical considerations surrounding brain-on-a-chip robotics and also what this all means for the future of humanity.
Sounds good.
Stay with us,
Welcome back to the deep dive.
where we are exploring the fascinating and often mind-boggling world of brain-on-a-chip robotics.
Before the break, we talked about how this tech uses, lab-grown brain cell, those brain organoids
Yeah.
to control robots.
Right.
And we talked about the incredible potential for this to like change how robots learn and interact with us.
Yeah, and it's still so wild to think about, like, robots powered by, like, actual living tissue.
Yeah.
It really does feel like straight out of science fiction, but it's happening.
It's real.
Yeah, in labs around the world.
It is, and it's raising a lot of questions, especially about the relationship between brain-on-a-chip technology and AI.
That's something I've been thinking about a lot, too. Like, we've talked about how this technology is different from AI.
Yeah.
In some ways, like, the speed of learning and energy efficiency, but it also seems like they could work together, right?
Absolutely. And there's actually a growing field of research that's exploring just that, how to combine those unique capabilities of brain-on-a-chip systems and the power of AI.
So what kind of possibilities does that open up?
Well,
I can only imagine. It must be, like, incredible.
Well, imagine a robot that has the adaptability and learning speed of a brain-on-a-chip system,
Okay.
but it also has access to a huge database of information
Okay.
and the analytical power of AI.
Wow.
It's like combining the intuition and creativity of the human brain with the logic and knowledge of a supercomputer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. That's both, like, exciting and a little bit scary, to be honest.
I know.
It's like,
It is.
Really powerful stuff.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important to be having these conversations now before this technology advances even further.
Right.
We need to consider these ethical and societal implications really carefully.
Speaking of ethical implications, I know that was something we wanted to delve deeper into.
It's a crucial part of this whole conversation. I mean, this technology raises some big questions about the nature of intelligence, even consciousness, and like life itself.
Yeah, when you start talking about using human brain cells to power robots, it really does get into some pretty deep philosophical territory.
It does, and there are no easy answers.
Yeah.
One of the biggest concerns, I think, is this possibility that these brain organoids, these mini brains, could like develop consciousness. And if so, what kind of rights would they have?
That's such a huge question. Like, how do we even define consciousness in a lab-grown brain?
Right.
And if they are conscious, is it even ethical to use them to control robots? Like, are we essentially creating a new form of sentient life just to, do our bidding?
Those are questions that scientists and ethicists, philosophers are all grappling with right now. I mean, there's no consensus, but it's a conversation that we need to have as a society.
One of our sources, it was an article in the journal Nature. They made a really interesting point. They said that, even if these brain organoids don't like reach the level of consciousness that we associate with, humans.
Right.
There's still this question of their welfare.
Of course.
They're living cells.
Exactly. We need to make sure that the biological components of these systems are treated ethically. They need nutrients. They need to be protected from damage. We can't just treat them like any other piece of technology.
It's interesting, though, because another source, a report from Cortical Labs, they actually mentioned that they're already thinking about this stuff.
Okay.
Like they're developing these computing modules that use human brain cells. And they've actually established an ethics board.
Oh, wow.
To like address these concerns.
That's really good to hear. I mean, it's encouraging to see that companies are taking these implications seriously. It's not just about the science. It's about the responsibility that comes with creating this kind of powerful technology.
And then, there's the broader societal impact.
Of course.
If we can create robots with brain-like learning, what does that mean for the future of humanity? Like, will robots eventually surpass us in intelligence? Will they take our jobs?
Yeah.
I mean, these are questions that, like, we've seen explored in science fiction, but now they're starting to feel like a lot more real.
They are, and I think we need to start thinking about these issues now. Before the technology advances even further.
Right.
We need to have open and honest conversations about the potential benefits, the risks of brain-on-a-chip robotics, and figure out how we develop this technology and use it responsibly.
You mentioned earlier the potential for brain-on-a-chip robots to maybe help with the police shortage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fascinating application, but it also raises some like really important ethical questions.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, robots assisting with like routine patrols, responding to certain emergencies, maybe even helping to like defuse potentially dangerous situations. It could really free up human offices for the more complex tasks that require, uniquely human skills, like critical thinking, empathy, judgment.
But then there are exactly the potential downsides. Like, how do we make sure that these robots are used responsibly and that they don't become tools of like oppression or discrimination?
Right.
How do we prevent like bias from creeping into their decision making?
Those are crucial questions. I think we need to have really clear guidelines and oversight in place to make sure these robots are used ethically and effectively. And we need to be mindful of that potential for bias, both in like the design of the robots themselves and in the data that they're trained on.
It's a really complex issue with like no easy answers.
It is.
But again, it's something that we have to start having these conversations about now. Before it's, too late.
Exactly.
Before this technology is widely deployed, we need to be proactive. And thoughtful about how we integrate these robots into our society.
Well, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the actual research process. Like, how are these brain-on-a-chip systems actually being developed and tested?
So walk me through it.
So it's actually a fascinating process that involves a lot of different disciplines, from biology and neuroscience to engineering and computer science. One key aspect is the creation of the brain organoids themselves. These are those 3D clusters of brain cells that are grown in a lab, and it turned out that the way that these organoids are stimulated can have a huge impact on their on their development and function.
So it's not just about growing the cells. It's about like how you nurture and train them.
Yeah, exactly.
To use that analogy.
Yeah, so the Metabus project, the one we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
they actually use low-intensity ultrasound.
Ultrasound.
Yeah.
Like for medical imaging.
That's right, to stimulate those brain organoids and to help create complex neural connections.
So using ultrasound, it helps the brain cells form more intricate networks.
Yes.
Which is crucial for like their processing information and learning.
Exactly.
That's incredible. So they're basically giving these mini brains like a workout
Yeah.
with sound waves.
Basically,
That's so cool.
and the results are amazing. Like, remember how we talked about that system that learned to play Pong in minutes?
Yeah.
That's thanks, in part, to this kind of stimulation technique.
So they're growing the brain organoids, they're stimulating them with ultrasound, and then connecting them to robots.
Right.
So what's next in this whole research process?
Well, once the brain-on-a-chip system is set up, then the real learning begins.
Okay.
So researchers design specific tasks for the robots to perform, and then they observe how those brain organoids respond and
Yeah.
adapt over time.
So it's like a training program for the mini brain.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. They give it a goal and see how it figures things out.
And this is where it starts to get really exciting, right?
It is.
Because we're starting to see some like really remarkable learning capabilities.
We are.
So for example, what have you seen?
Well, remember, we talked about the metadice system
Yeah.
that allowed the robots to avoid obstacles, track objects, grasp things.
Right.
Those are complex tasks
Right.
that require a lot of coordination and adaptation.
And the brain organoids were able to learn to do that?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
And they did it surprisingly quickly. One of the sources mentioned that the brain organoids in the Metabox system,
Yeah.
they contain about 10,000 brain cells each.
Okay, that doesn't sound like a lot compared to like the billions of neurons in a human brain.
It's true, but even with that, relatively small number of cells,
Right.
the brain organoids were still able to demonstrate those remarkable learning abilities.
That's wild.
And remember, this technology is still in its early stages. I mean, imagine what will be possible
Yeah.
as researchers develop even more, sophisticated brain-on-a-chip systems
Okay.
with larger and more complex brain organoids.
Yeah, it's really mind-boggling to think about, as this technology advances, what kind of breakthroughs are we going to see, in the next few years even?
I think we'll see significant progress, in several areas.
Okay.
First, I think we're going to see researchers develop brain organoids with even greater complexity,
Okay.
even more functionality. They're
Right.
already experimenting with different types of brain cells and different ways to stimulate and connect them.
So we might see brain organoids that are more specialized for certain tasks.
Exactly, one that's really good at visual processing, for example. And then as those brain organoids become more sophisticated, the robots that they control
Yeah.
are going to be capable of even more complex and nuanced behaviors.
Okay, that makes sense.
What else? I think another area where we'll see progress is in the development of more advanced brain-computer interfaces.
Okay.
Those interfaces are key to connecting the brain organoids to the robots.
Right.
And allowing them to communicate effectively.
So better interfaces means better communication between the mini brain
Yes.
and the machine.
And that will open up a whole world of possibilities, for controlling, interacting with robots.
Wow. Okay.
We might see robots that can understand and respond to human emotions. Robots that can learn from their experiences and adapt to new situations in real time. Robots that can collaborate with humans
Yeah.
seamlessly, intuitively.
So it's incredible that we're already at the point where we can control robots with brain cells.
It is.
But what are some of the long-term goals for this research? What's the ultimate vision for brain-on-a-chip robotics?
Well, the ultimate goal for a lot of researchers in this field is to create, truly intelligent, autonomous robots.
Okay.
Robots that can learn, adapt, and solve problems on their own without needing constant human intervention.
So robots that can think for themselves, essentially.
In a way, yes, but I think it's important to remember that this kind of intelligence
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily be the same as human intelligence.
Right.
It would be a different kind of intelligence based on those unique capabilities
Yeah.
of brain cells.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction to make, I think, because we often, think of intelligence in very human terms.
We do.
But there may be other forms of intelligence out there that we haven't even imagined.
Exactly.
And that's what makes this research so exciting.
It is.
We're exploring
Yeah.
the very nature of intelligence and consciousness.
I agree.
And who knows what we might discover along the way.
We could discover new ways to treat brain disorders, maybe enhance human cognition, even new ways to interact with the world around us.
It's like we're on the verge of a new scientific revolution, a revolution that could completely change how we understand, the brain, robotics, even ourselves.
I think so.
It's both thrilling and a little bit terrifying, don't you think?
I agree. I mean, there's a certain awe that comes with exploring the unknown,
Yeah.
especially when it involves something as fundamental as the human brain.
Right.
But as with any powerful technology, there are risks as well as rewards.
Yeah.
And it's really our responsibility to navigate those risks carefully. Yeah, make sure this technology is used for good.
Absolutely. We need to approach this research with a sense of wonder, but also a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
Be mindful of the ethical implications, the potential impact on society.
For sure.
And the long-term consequences of our actions.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the technical details of how these brain-on-a-chip systems work to those really philosophical questions about consciousness and the future of humanity.
Yeah, it has been a fascinating discussion.
Yes.
And I think it's pretty clear that brain-on-a-chip robotics is a field that's going to continue to, capture our imaginations and challenge our assumptions for many years to come.
No doubt about it. I mean, this is a technology with the potential to change the world,
Yeah.
It's a technology that could bring us incredible benefits.
Yeah.
But it's also a technology that demands our respect, our attention, and our very careful consideration.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into brain-on-a-chip robotics.
When we've been talking about all the incredible possibilities and, complex ethical considerations of this whole emerging technology.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild, hasn't it? We've covered so much ground, from tiny lab-grown brains controlling robots.
It has.
To the potential impact on, law enforcement and even the very nature of intelligence itself.
Absolutely. It's a topic that I think really pushes the boundaries of what we even thought was possible.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to see how quickly this field is advancing.
Before we wrap up, I did want to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
This idea of brain-on-a-chip robots, but working alongside AI.
Yeah, that merging of these two powerful technologies, that's, I think, a real frontier.
Yep.
With immense potential.
It's funny because when we first started talking about brain-on-a-chip, it almost sounded like an alternative to AI, like a totally different path to, achieving machine intelligence.
And in some ways, I think it is, it offers a very different approach to learning and problem solving, one that's really based on the biological mechanism of the brain.
But that doesn't mean it can't coexist with AI.
No, not at all.
And even collaborate.
Yeah, I think it's not an either-or situation. It's more about how can we take the strengths of both and harness them.
So, what would that look like in a practical sense?
Well, I mean, imagine a world where you have these robots that are powered by brain-on-a-chip systems.
Okay.
So they can learn really quickly, adapt to new situations, interact with humans in a very intuitive way.
Okay.
But then you get on top of that the vast knowledge, the processing power, the analytical capabilities of AI.
Wow.
So it's like having a robot with the instincts and creativity of a human brain, but also the knowledge and logic of a supercomputer.
So you could potentially have robots that are doing incredibly complex tasks.
Yeah.
Solving problems that, have stumped humans for centuries.
Right.
Maybe even making creative breakthroughs in things like art and science and technology.
I think that the potential it's really incredible.
But of course, as with any powerful technology, there are potential downsides.
Oh, of course.
Let's always have to keep those in mind.
Absolutely. We need to be mindful of, the ethical implications, the potential for misuse,
right.
The need to ensure that these technologies are developed responsibly and that they're used responsibly.
I think one of the big concerns that a lot of people have, and it's something that we've seen explored in science fiction so much, is this idea of creating robots that are so intelligent, so autonomous,
right,
that they could actually pose a threat to humanity.
It's a classic trope, but it's something we have to think about.
We do, yeah.
And it's not even just about robots turning against us, right?
Right.
We also need to consider, what's the impact on jobs, on privacy, on social equality.
Right.
As these technologies advance, we need to make sure they're benefiting everyone.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
It is.
And there's definitely no easy answers.
No.
But I think these are the conversations that we need to be having now.
No.
Before it's too late.
I agree.
Before these things are so advanced.
Yes.
That it becomes, almost impossible to control them.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final question.
Okay.
To ponder.
A big one.
A big one, a question that I think really gets to the heart of like what it means to be human
Okay.
in this age of increasingly intelligent machines.
So we've talked a lot about how 3-on-a-chip technology is kind of blurring the lines
It is.
between humans and machines,
Yeah.
challenging our very definitions of intelligence
For sure.
and consciousness. But
Here's the question.
yeah,
If we can create robots that are capable of learning, adapting, even creating,
Yeah.
just like we do, does that change what it means to be human?
does it like diminish our own sense of uniqueness
Yeah.
and purpose?
Right. Or does it open up new possibilities for collaboration, for connection, for understanding between humans and machines?
That's a great question, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
I don't either.
But it's something that I think we all need to be thinking about as we move into this uncharted territory.
Absolutely. As we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible, not just with brain on a chip,
Right.
but with AI and all these other emerging technologies, I think the important thing to remember is the future isn't set in stone.
Right.
It's not predetermined.
Yeah, we still have a role to play.
We do. The future is something that we create together
Yeah.
through the choices that we make, through the actions where we take.
Yeah, it's a collaborative process.
It is.
For sure.
So I think let's embrace these possibilities, but with open minds, with cautious optimism.
Okay.
Let's explore the potential benefits
Yeah.
of these technologies, but always stay vigilant about the risks.
Absolutely.
Let's engage in thoughtful debate.
Yeah.
Collaboration to make sure that these advancements truly serve humanity.
Yeah.
And create a better future for everyone.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us
Yeah, thank you.
on this deep dive into brain-on-a-chip robotics.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it, informative, thought-provoking,
Yeah,
and maybe even a little bit mind-blowing.
a little bit.
And as always, we encourage you to, keep the conversation going.
Yes.
Share your thoughts, your questions, your concerns with us in the comments.
We love to hear from you.
The Deep Dive podcast is brought to you by X9 Intelligence, LLC.
That's right.
Make sure you subscribe to our channel and visit our blogs at x9intel.com.
And let us know
Yeah.
what you think about all this.
Let us know your thoughts on this revolutionary tech in the comments.